Hey, it's Tim. I am just back from the inaugural Northern Colorado record show put on by some good friends of mine, Lance and Nick. And those guys formed, it's kind of a loose online group. They have a Facebook page, they have an Instagram page. It's called The Vinyl Herd. I have talked about it before on my channel. We keep threatening to make some kind of a co-video together, and life is busy. It hasn't happened yet, but I was really pleased to see the turnout and just the quality of records that were available at this show today. I was like maybe approaching, I haven't done a video in 3 weeks, and a couple things. I've been super busy with work and haven't really had time to sit down and gather my thoughts and get behind a camera and talk about records. Um, and then the other thing is, I was maybe getting a little burned out. Um, Too much work and not enough time to relax kind of makes Tim a sad man. Things are getting better. And today, I was just, it was like a reaffirmation of why I'm in this hobby, why I collect records. Saw a lot of familiar faces, some friends, and picked up a lot of cool records. I'm going to show you some highlights. This was by far the most vinyl I have walked out of a show with. It was crazy. Um, uh, Wait around for the end of this video, because the second half I'm going to show some records that are the prices were crazy. Okay, I was tipped off to a booth at the show, and more power to those guys. I'm not sure what their mindset is or was, but I got some incredible bargains, and I'm going to show you a few of those. I don't want to like brag too much, but I will say, if you have an opportunity to buy an early bird ticket to get in an hour early to these shows, it's well worth your time. You just never know when you're going to run across a situation like I ran across earlier today. So enough about that. I don't want to dwell on finding a bunch of great records for not a lot of money, but it's not something that you see every day, so it has to be talked about a little bit. We'll touch on more of that later in the video. First of all, I'm a huge fan of 12-inch maxi singles, whether they're on 33 or 45 RPM. These are typically really well mastered kind of previews of albums that they used to put out in the day. And when I saw this, I jumped on it. First of all, Patti Smith is an iconic artist, and that is an iconic photograph. Robert Mapplethorpe, of course, and those two were friends. They have Patti has a great book called, I think it's called Friends, and it's about her early days in New York City, hanging out with her close friend Robert Mapplethorpe. This was a 1988 huge single, People Have the Power, and this has just kind of taken on more meaning and more depth as we've moved through the decades now. I was just looking at Wikipedia. U2 used this song as their opening entrance song for an entire tour back in 2015, the Innocence tour or whatever it was. Sorry, U2 fans, I don't have that memorized. Written by Patti and her late husband, Fred Sonic Smith. Fred Sonic Smith, it should go without saying, if you don't know, legendary slash and burn guitar player, great producer, and of course, founding member of the MC5 from Detroit Rock City. proud Michigander here. I'm going to throw that in. This is an emotional song. Huge production values, 1988. This is a DMM cut, master disc, Robert Ludwig. And we get a couple other songs on side B that I haven't heard yet. I did spin People Have the Power, and this belongs in everyone's collection. I'm going to actually go out and look for the album, Dream of Life. This was a kind of a preview of that album, but super happy to have this near mint condition, gorgeous cover photographed, and crisp corners on this. Couldn't be happier with this thing. Let's keep it in the 12-inch single arena for one more. When I saw this and I saw that it was on 45 RPM on the Warner Brothers label, this was the first inkling that America got of the upcoming Husker Du, their major label debut on Warner Brothers, which was Candy Apple Grey, 1986. Don't Want to Know If You Are Lonely. And on the flip side, we have an incredible couple other songs. We've got Helter Skelter Live, recorded at First Avenue in Minneapolis, where that band, it was basically their home base. In fact, in 2004, Bob Mould and Grant Hart, the first time ever, shared a stage and played, I think, 3 or 4 songs at a tribute show. I believe that was 2004. It was the only time that they would ever appear live on stage after the breakup of the band in, 1987. There's the flip side of that record. It was of course, a gold stamp promo. Always nice to find these. Mint condition, great price for this. One of Bob Mould's better compositions with Husker Du, in my opinion. Don't Want to Know If You Are Lonely. Love it. Nicholas is one of the co-founders of the Vinyl Herd. He is a record collector and kind of a part-time dealer as well. And he had a booth at the show. We were talking, I was flipping through records, and he had mentioned he had been down to Denver and found a great collection down there. Picked up basically almost the entire catalog of the early Ramones records on Sire. Were they all on Sire? I can't remember. This was one that I picked up from Nick. This thing is in near mint condition on Sire. End of the century. This, of course, is a Phil Spector production, kind of Phil's pet project at that point in time. Side 2 leads off with a song that was actually co-written by Spector and the great Ellie Greenwich and Jeff Barry, Baby I Love You. Listen to the spin that the Ramones put on that song. Really, really well done. And Joey and the guys were deeper than their looks. That's what I love about the Ramones. You got incredible chops, just, what you needed to put that song out to the public. In some cases they were rudimentary chops, but they worked perfectly for what the Ramones were. But then you've got Joey, and Joey, some of his songs, pure poetry. Of course, Baby I Love You is not an original, but this is a fun record. Another Ramones 1978 original, Road to Ruin. This one I'm not as familiar with, so really happy to have this in the collection. Looking forward to giving it a spin. That Sire label as well. And Ramones, what you don't see clean copies very often in the wild, so thank you, Nicholas, for taking the time to pick up that collection. And your pricing was very, very fair, by the way. I've bought several things from Nick over the last couple of years, Great guy, and it was a great show today. Moving on, one of the best original recordings, the best sounding original recordings that I have in my collection. It's by none other than XTC. It's the 1982 double album. And you've heard me talk about this album before, English Settlement. Do not settle for the truncated American version that was first released on a single LP. It is missing several of the best songs from the album. So Geffen came out with the full double album version that you can find. I think they were released in 1986. However, if you really want to hear this record the way it was intended to be heard, look at this gorgeous embossed cover, and then we have this debossed horse ancient symbol in the from the hills of England in the middle of the album. But the English Settlement and XTC is embossed there. Also on the back cover, XTC is kind of embedded or debossed into that cover as well. This is what is known as the wide spine first UK pressing. Are we going to get any focus here? Maybe I'll get out of the picture. Anyway, this is just an incredible album. Of course, America fell in love with Senses working overtime, but there are so many. This is such a deep album, and a near mint copy at a good price. I already have a copy of this, but there was no way in hell I was going to leave this there. So I'm going to take a look at this copy versus the one that I have and decide what to do. But you don't see these every day here in the United States of America. The UK copies, which are the ones that you want. English Settlement 1982 XTC. Maybe my find of the show, even though I've already got a copy of the record. Here I go again. I did a video a few weeks ago called Olives Please, and check it out if you haven't seen it. It's all about the early, late 60s and early 70s, that green olive Warner Brother label. If you have any of those records, by and large, they are detailed, they are dynamic, they're quiet, and they all sound really, really good. So I picked this up. This was a early first pressing, U.S. pressing on Warner Brothers. I'll show you that label in a minute. And, you know, the cover is about, got a corner cut off of it here, but wait until you see the record. The record is just in incredible condition. Already spinned a little bit of side one, which is such an incredible side of just incredible music. Black Sabbath, Paranoid. Santa Maria Pressing, one of the better Columbia pressing plants of the back in the day. There is a nice sheen and gloss with that green olive Paranoid. Santa Maria Pressing, I said that already. I have a limited edition purple vinyl reissue that I thought sounded pretty good. I'm gonna compare. Already on side one on War Pigs, just the dynamism of that song, and a lot of early, 1970s stereo separation going on. A lot of air in that kind of recording and in the soundstage. I've never heard a vertical cut of this record. They are just so extraordinarily priced right now that I'm not a huge Zabbath zealot, so I'm not going to go seek one of those out. But if I can find a first press U.S. original on that Green Warner Brothers label, I'm going to jump. I'm continuing to kind of build and work on infill on my Tom Waits collection. This was a gorgeous copy of Blue Valentine at a very fair price. I don't know a whole lot about this recording, but I love Tom Waits, and looking forward to giving this a spin. Specialty press, I believe, on that first Asylum label. Another near mint record. The next record is from a very short-lived New York City-based supergroup of alternative rock artists. Everybody from Richard Thompson, John Lydon. You may have heard of Michael Stipe. And the person behind this was Anton Fear. Anton Fear, producer, drummer, recently passed away. When I think of Anton Fear, I think of the first two Bob Mould solo albums, Workbook and Black Sheets of Rain. He was part of that power trio on those albums. An incredible drummer, incredible feel. And the group I'm talking about is the Golden Palominos. This is the first time I've ever seen this thing out in the wild. It's from 1988, I believe. I'm sorry, 1985. Look at the who's who here. Sid Straw, John Lydon, again, Richard Thompson, Bertie Worrell from Funkadelic and the second iteration of the Talking Heads touring band is on here. Michael Stipe sings lead vocal on the first three songs. Two of them are originals, written with Jody Harris on guitar, Bill Laswell on bass, Chris Steamy of the DBs, if I'm remembering that correctly. Also kind of a key player in the early career of REM. Anton Fears plays drums on all of these tracks. Richard Thompson, I already talked about him. Jack Bruce, kind of a who's who of cool people who are hanging out in New York in the mid to late 1980s. The name of this record is Visions of Excess. Golden Palominos. Anton Fear is pictured on the back here. Sorry about that glare. Really, really cool record, and I've already listened to the first two or three out of interest to Michael Stipe lead vocal songs. They sound great. They sound like a totally different version of Stipe, with a little more crunchy guitars behind him. Great production, great drumming from Anton Fear. Golden Palominos. If you ever see this out there, pick it up. Had to get a little 1970s jazz soul fusion. And what better way than this record from Herbie Hancock. This is in near mint condition, Man-Child. I'm not familiar with it, but I'm looking forward to giving it a spin. The only Herbie in this period I have is Headhunters from 1972, I think. This is a 1975 record. Let me know in the comments if you guys are familiar with this record. I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about it. But another near mint record for $20, I think, is what I paid for that one. And then finally, gonna give this a whirl. A $10 Woody Shaw record, which happened to be one of my favorite things to find, are white label promos. This thing is in pristine condition. Not familiar with this record at all. 1980, $10. I think it's going to be an an exploration worth taking. Okay, I let off the video and talked about, getting an early bird entry to some of these shows. I think it's important. You just don't know what you're going to find. And when you have like 20 dealers that have just set up the first day of a show, for sure you should get an early bird ticket, because you want to have an hour to kind of make the rounds and just kind of see what's happening, because things get picked over quickly in these shows, and they will disappear quickly if they're worth your time. I was tipped off to a booth, and I kind of stopped, looking at records in his thing, and told him I'd be back in a while. And I spent a half an hour in this booth, and my jaw dropped. I will say this about those guys: more power to them, because they probably shifted more records in that show today than anyone else. I'm going to run through a few of the things that I picked up. The first full REM album, Murmur, it's on the translucent vinyl. It's an IRS original pressing. That's what I paid for it. REM's Chronic Town. I'm not even going to say these prices out loud. I'm embarrassed. Alice Cooper's Greatest Hits, pristine copy. Last but not least, this is an album that I haven't picked up yet. It's a triple album comp that Neil Young put out in, 1976, 1977, maybe 78. Decade. Triple album. This is a Winchester pressing. And that's what I paid for this. Clean copy. Used to have this on CD for years. So happy to add this. That's it. That was my experience earlier today at the first edition, hopefully many more to come, the Northern Colorado Record Show. It was actually held at a very cool brewery on the outside of Fort Collins called Sweetwater Brewery. They're actually a brewery out of Atlanta, Georgia. Cool place. Couldn't think of a better venue. I'm tired of being stuffed into, cramped hotel conference rooms. You're in there for an hour and the air is definitely stale, and you're kind of, you may have a headache coming on, and it's not good for, enthusiasm and, being able to continue digging and looking for records. So this place was awesome. I celebrated my kind of haul at the end of the session with an ice cold IPA, a West Coast hazy IPA from Sweetwater. Very, very tasty. Again, thanks to Nick and Lance for putting this show on. I hope it was a huge success. Congratulations, guys. And I will be back hopefully later in the week. I've got a couple ideas brewing that I want to talk about in videos. Hopefully later in the week, if not early next week. Take care, everybody, and have what's left of the weekend. I'm going to try and put this up tonight. Have a good Sunday night. Take care.